You're listening to Tipping Point Radio. I'm Craig Merriweather, and this is Emergence. In the last few years, more people than ever, from different backgrounds and walks of life, are talking about the heart. More company mission statements make a point to mention the importance of the heart in leadership and customer care. More speakers, articles, and books, both spiritual and non-spiritual, are referring to the heart. Whether people mention speaking from the heart, listening to the heart, connecting with the heart, or following the heart, it is a clear sign that there is increased awareness and movement towards using your heart in all of life's decisions and actions. But just what does that mean? Is it possible to move past a philosophical view of the heart and use the latest science and research on the heart to make a better life? Does the heart do more than actually pump blood through your body, and can we harness the power, dare I say, intelligence of the heart to create a happier, more successful, and healthier world for ourselves and those around us? Howard Martin is one of the original leaders who helped Doc Childrey found HeartMath, one of the premier research centers on the heart. He co-authored with Doc Childrey the HeartMath solution and has been with HeartMath's worldwide training and consulting team since its inception in 1991. In 2000, he authored the HeartMath Method, an audio learning program published by Nightingale Conant. During his career with HeartMath, he has been instrumental in business development and in delivering HeartMath's practical yet dynamic programs to thousands of participants worldwide. Because of his universal appeal, he has conducted training programs and keynote presentations in Fortune 100 companies, government agencies, all 4 branches of the U.S. military, school systems, and through publicly promoted events in over 50 cities on 4 continents. Howard has been seen on Good Morning America, ABC's World News Tonight, the Discovery Channel, CNN, and featured in Newsday, the Boston Globe, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the U.S. News and World Report. Now here's my interview with Howard Martin. Hello, Howard. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Craig. Thanks so much for having me today, and greetings to you and, of course, to everyone who's listening to this program wherever you are around the world.
You know, when I was in school back in the 70s and 80s, we were all taught that the heart was a muscle that pumped blood throughout the body as directed by the brain. And at the same time, we were also being told that we must listen to our heart, and we have to speak from our heart, and that we should follow our heart, and then we must connect to our heart to really become the person who we are meant to be. And what I love about your work, Howard, and the research that you do and the research of your colleagues at HeartMath, it moves past this kind of philosophical view of the heart that we know of, and kind of looks at the heart from a very scientific point of view. And the results you have received from your research have been amazing. And I wonder if you could just kind of start us off, I guess, explain what it is that you've been doing these last many years and some of the things you have found.
Well, that's really a great opening, opportunity to speak for sure about heart. You know, we've all heard about heart forever. Every great spiritual teaching, philosophers' songs, all of those things have often talked about the heart in the most revered ways. And yet, we were taught in school that the heart is just an organ that's pumping blood, it's operating off of commands from the brain. Many, many years ago, going way back with Doc Childrey, the founder of HeartMath, myself and others who were all part of the founding group here, we'd had personal experiences that heart was more than just a blood pump. It related a lot more to a spiritual connection that we had and an intelligence that we found inside ourselves that was helping us to be better people, giving us the ability to better navigate life. It was an intelligence that we found to be high speed and intuitive. It was the type of intelligence that gave us a sense of self-security, and it was the kind of intelligence that allowed us to begin to move beyond our mediocrity, to surprise ourselves, to be able to do things that we often thought we couldn't, and many, many other things were unfolding for us long before we ever had research. When we started HeartMath now back in 1991, it was based upon the 15 years of previous experience that we'd had. And we'd made a conscious choice over a number of years that now we wanted to share what we had learned as best we could with others to put together a heart-based system that could have mainstream impact. It could take heart from just the respected confines of spirituality and religion and begin to put those into a structure that could be used for daily living. So we recognized that we better have a bridge to do that with because, again, heart had been talked about for thousands of years. People had some respect for it, but it wasn't often seen as practical. The bridge we chose to use was science. The reason we chose science is because in our modern society, something that becomes empirical takes on new belief and new meaning. And we needed to recast the view of heart. So we began to do the scientific research that you mentioned, and we were just trying to understand the physical heart better. We decided to start there and just look at the physical heart and see if there was something going on at the physiological level of heart that could explain some of the experiences that we'd had and how heart had become a guiding force in our own lives. What we found, Craig, was really interesting. We found that scattered out throughout the research literature, there was information about the heart being more than just a blood pump. And we found some things too that, that I guess many people knew, but I certainly didn't, that the heart is, basically performing a lot of other functions besides pumping blood. What we discovered was there were four ways that the heart was actually communicating with us, that the heart was sending powerful commands to the brain and throughout the rest of the system, and that it was essential information. For instance, brain function requires this information from the heart. It's essential information to our entire system. And that, yes, its primary function at the physiological level is pumping blood, cardiovascular organ, but it was doing a whole lot more than that. So I think what our researchers did was through their own research and through finding research from others, they were able to put together a story that today is actually quite popular and has reintroduced heart in a new way. People that have written about us have said things like, HeartMath simultaneously introduced a new view of physiology and a new view of psychology, which I think was a pretty big accomplishment. So today there are things like, for example, statistics like over 10,000 books in print right now that are citing HeartMath. A lot of those citations happen to be about the research. I was asked by another interviewer one time what HeartMath's greatest contribution to the world had been so far. I didn't have a ready answer for that, but the answer that came out of me in that interview was this, that we have validated other people's belief systems. I think the work that we've done has provided foundational understanding of things that have been somewhat conceptual. And while they may be correct, that empirical side of what that was needed just wasn't there. And through our research, people have been able to draw upon that and to correlate things that they do with things that we say. And so I think we've helped the overall personal growth, spiritual growth movement in many, many ways through taking a, first of all, heart-centric approach to the whole process and then adding an empirical scientific component to it as well.
It kind of reminds me of that, what was it, Donald Rumsfeld quote, the known unknowns. It's like we have this feeling or this we think this is, way the heart works, because sometimes when we get into that flow or that zone, it seems to be coming from the heart. And it seems now that your work is actually proving that to be true.
Yeah, I think we have in many, many ways. But HeartMath, is a lot more than research. Research is just a component of what we do. Really, what we put together was a system consisting of techniques and methods and even technology, which is a big part of what we do today, all underpinned with the scientific research. And so that system, basically the HeartMath system has been experienced by literally millions of people around the world. And I think that's the biggest accomplishment that we've had, really, is providing some understanding and some tools and techniques that people can use during these times, because we are living in an unprecedented era of change. In my opinion, we are in the midst of a dimensional shift in consciousness that's outpicturing itself through all the things that we go through in our personal lives as well as all the world events. And never before in the history of the world have we had this much change happening in such a short amount of time. And so we need a guidance system. We need a way to navigate. We need a way to thrive in these times rather than just, be surviving in them. And to me, the intelligence of the heart is that guidance system. So all the things that we do are designed really to put people in touch with something they already have inside so that they can benefit in ways that, say, people like ourselves have here at HeartMath. And so I think that's the main purpose of HeartMath, and what we're trying to do really is to put that system into place so that people can find more fulfillment during a time when there's a lot to be gained and a lot of important choices are being made.
Yeah, that's what I love about the work you all are doing, is because you just don't do the papers and do the research, but do you teach people how to adapt that research into everyday life, into the real world results?
That's right. I mean, myself, I'm not a trained scientist. I'm surrounded by trained scientists. We have a great scientific team here, but we employ like something like 80 some people now. And, let's say 6 or 7 of them are researchers. Well, the rest are people that are involved in the business side of what we do and the training side of what we do, the technology, all those things. So there's a lot that goes on here that it goes beyond just the research, but I respect the research greatly because without it, I don't think we would have been able to have this kind of impact we've had. Example of that would be a lot of the training programs that we do are actually done in very conservative mainstream organizations. We've done, for example, a lot with the U.S. military and with police forces. One of our licensees in the Netherlands, for example, is training every single police officer in the Netherlands
Yeah, that's
in
amazing.
HeartMath techniques. Science was able to put heart into a context that did make it practical, and I think that's where it's really important.
Yeah, well, I think, for lack of a better term, and I apologize beforehand, that some of this stuff sounds kind of woo-woo. But when you bring it, the science foundation behind it, you can say, yeah, it's kind of weird and strange, but all science is weird and strange at the beginning.
Yeah, I think science, is trying to prove things or trying to prove or disprove things. You have to always throw that disprove in there as well, about certain things that we may believe. And what's interesting also that I find about science is that often it can be looking at one thing but then discover something else.
Yeah.
So it's an important discipline, an important process that we have in society and in life, and it does produce amazing things in our lives. The real science, however, to me, is the science of understanding ourselves.
Yeah.
The inner technology, intuitive technology that we are involved in now is part of the evolutionary process. Getting on to many things about ourselves, about how we can improve, how we can change, what our blocks are, how we can put ourselves in a position to make greater contributions to our immediate associates and family, but also to the larger world, the global society. And I think that's the position that many people are in today, is looking for ways in which they can do that better. And that's a lot about what I talk about in my live events, is the changing times that we live in, where we are today, what we can do differently that would allow us to be more effective conscious co-creators during this extraordinary time where, again, important choices are being made.
Well, something you said a little earlier captured my attention, and you said that the heart also sends communication to the brain, or something to that effect. I wonder if
Yeah.
you could go, because that just kind of boggles my mind and blows my mind, because I have this thinking that the brain is, or I'm sorry, that the heart is just this muscle that just kind of does its job of pumping blood, so that it actually is communicating information back up to the brain. And I think when in researching for this interview, you said it even communicates more. It sends more information to the brain than the brain does to the heart. And I wonder if you could explain that.
Sure, I'll be glad to. Well, it does it in 4 ways. The first way is a neurological communication. The heart has a nervous system. It's actually studied through a field called neurocardiology. And this is one of those who knew kind of things, right?
Yeah.
And it's a very complex nervous system. Next to the brain, it's the most complex part of the nervous system that we have. It sends information to the brain through a nerve pathway that starts out in the heart, but then travels up into the brain. It enters the brain through the lower brain centers called the medulla. It travels right in through the mid-level brain, where we have what's called the limbic system, which is where a lot of our emotional processing occurs. It's very important information for that. But then that nerve pathway actually terminates all the way into the very highest perceptual centers of our brain, the neocortex. So we have information going from heart back to brain neurologically. You were alluding to something a minute ago that's true. When researchers map out that neurological traffic in our bodies, it's clearly seen that the heart is sending a lot more information to the brain than it ever gets from the brain. The brain's basically just sending timing information to the heart. The heart is sending a lot more information back to the brain. And that's just the first way. The second way is through something called the blood pressure wave. If we place our finger on our wrist, we feel our pulse. The pulse is actually a wave of energy created by the squeezing of the heart muscle. That wave of energy pushes the blood through the veins and the arteries. Now, the blood pressure wave obviously travels throughout the entire body, which is how blood gets everywhere in the body, and that also includes the brain. brain activity is actually synchronized. The electrical activity of the brain is actually synchronized to changes occurring in that blood pressure wave. So as the heart's rhythms change in the way in which it beats, the blood pressure wave modulates, and it modulates brain activity. That's your second way. The third way is another one of those who knew kind of things that we discovered. All the way back in 1983, the heart was actually reclassified as being a hormonal gland as well as a cardiovascular organ. So there's a neurochemical communication taking place. It produces several hormones. One of those is called atrial peptide. Atrial peptide's job is to reduce the release of the stress hormone cortisol. The heart also produces a large amount of oxytocin, which some of the listeners may have heard of. It's generically called the love hormone. It's a hormone that's beneficial, that's produced in greater amounts when we are in loving states, like a mother with a baby, and or when we're in a trusting position, that kind of thing. So those are the first three ways, and they are well documented, well understood. They're called hardwired biological communication pathways. The fourth way is where the exciting new things are taking place and where it's most interesting to me, and that's the energetic communication. The heart is an electrical organ. When we go to a physician and we get our electrocardiogram taken, we are getting an electrical signal from the heart that the doctor then uses to interpret cardiovascular health. It's called electrocardiogram for a reason. It's an electrical signal. Now, that electrical energy produced by the heart is the strongest source by far of bioelectricity in our bodies, and it goes to every single cell in our bodies. The interesting part is this, is that the signal is strong enough that it creates an electromagnetic field. That electromagnetic field surrounds each and every one of us in 360 degrees, and it extends beyond our skin out into space. In this context, we're not measuring something like subtle energy or anything like an aura or something like that. We're measuring an electromagnetic field. In my book, The HeartMath Solution, I reported that the field was extending out of the body about 8 to 10 feet. That was based on another organization's findings. Our researchers use something called magnetometers, which are traditionally used to measure electromagnetic fields. So they stand behind the magnetometer readings. It's very, very solid and understood. And they say 3 to 4 feet outside the body. So we have this field, and we are emanating. That's emanating from our hearts, extending around us in 360 degrees, extending beyond our skin out into space. That field also changes. The frequencies or information in the field is constantly changing. And here's what's really interesting about that. The main thing that modulates those changes are our emotions. If we are feeling a strong negative emotion, for example, we will create something called an incoherent spectra, a very chaotic field. If we're experiencing emotions that, by coincidence perhaps, but not in other ways, have been associated with heart, emotions like care, love, compassion, kindness, appreciation, patience, all those type of emotions, they produce a different field, a more coherent field. So we are broadcasting this information through the electromagnetic field of the heart. The type of things we look at now are, how does the field of the heart relate to the little field produced by the brain? What is the energetic connectivity going on between all living systems? How does my heart relate to another's heart? How does my heart relate to nature? And then beyond that, we're looking at big picture things. We began to look at the view of this field beyond just an electromagnetic measurement, and began to look at it through things like quantum physics, which remove some of the boundaries of time and space. And then it gets really interesting. Things like our Global Coherence Initiative are looking at the collective field produced by human beings, all 7.2 billion of us, and the energetic fields that are produced by the Earth. So it gets really fun, it gets really exciting and very interesting, because it does go into new science and new research. But just in a recap, just saying that the heart is doing more than pumping blood. It's an information processing center in the body. We know that it sends a lot of information. We also suspect that it receives information, and that this information could be going far and wide. It could be much bigger than here on Earth. It could be going way, way beyond the Earth. And that, in my opinion, we relate to, conscious mind, universal source, the universe, all the big picture things. We relate to that through the heart. And that's been my personal experience, and one of the great benefits of learning more about how to access the intelligence of our own hearts.
So if this field is regulated, if you might say, by emotion, then if you're going through your day in anger and frustration and disappointment, you're kind of screwing yourself.
You are, and there's a statement that I make a lot of times early on in my live shows where I say this, that I believe that we all live in a field of energy. It would be called consciousness, and that field of energy is reflecting back to us not what we think in our minds, but what we truly feel in our hearts. So you're right. If we're putting out anger, frustration, resentment, judgment, those kind of things, we're feeding that field, and that field in some ways is reflecting back to us and influencing our perceptions and our experience of life. Conversely, if we are appreciating things in life, if we are less judgmental, if we are more loving and kind and compassionate, things that have been revered in some ways but appear to be soft in others, we get back a different picture from life. So they're not soft in any way. They give us the ability to co-create with the universal source. I'm just calling that big conscience generic names, but it gives us the ability to work with that in a different kind of way that creates a different life for ourselves, one that's a whole lot more fulfilling, a lot less stressful, and certainly more productive.
Wow. There's so much great information. One of the studies that I hear you talk about that really boggles my mind, blows my mind away, is this one where it's kind of like a precognitive response that the heart was giving, and there was these subjects who were volunteers who were looking at photographs on a computer that were kind of randomly popping up on the computer. You know the one I'm talking about?
You've done your research well.
Well,
You've done your homework, Craig.
Oh yeah. Well, this one I heard about this study a while ago, and it's just always, it's mind-boggling to me. I'm hoping you can explain it in a little bit of detail, because if we could somehow harness this as outside of the scientific laboratory, it would, my God, it would do so much to improve our lives. So maybe you just take off and kind of explain this amazing study.
Sure, I'll be glad to. It's called the Physiology of Intuition Study, published in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine. For listeners who want more research information, you just go to the HeartMath.org site. That's our nonprofit, the Institute of HeartMath site. And there's a research tab there, and you can find more research there than you probably want to keep you busy for a really long time. But the name of that study is the Physiology of Intuition Study. Here's the way it worked. Test subjects were wired from head to toe, looking at all kinds of brainwave activities and lots of different heart activity readings, as well as other things like skin response readings. So we were getting lots of information back from the bodies of these test subjects. The computer, as you mentioned, was loaded with images. They were divided into two categories, either very horrific images, car wrecks, blood, snakes jumping at you, those kind of things, or images that were very beautiful and evocative, pretty sunsets, rainbows, bunny rabbits, things like that. Now, the computer was set to randomly select. It was not programmed, so it was just randomly selecting images. And the way the protocol worked is that the test subject was sitting in front of the computer. They would get a message saying, push the button. They had a button in their hand. They pushed that button. There would be a 6-second delay, and then a picture would emerge on the screen. Then the screen would go blank for 10 seconds. Then the prompt to push the button would come up again. They pushed the button, 6-second delay, picture shows up, and this process was repeated over and over and over and over again. Now, when the researchers began to decode that information, they found some things that were really, really interesting and amazing. The first thing they found that was shocking was that in many, many cases, the physiological response to the picture actually was taking place 6 seconds before the picture was on the screen. It was during that 6-second delay period that the physiology was responding to the upcoming picture. So the body was doing what it would do if the picture was there, but it wasn't there. And that was amazing. So then they began to look at the data more closely and look at what was happening, from the information transfers that were occurring inside the body. And this is where it went from precognitive to something completely different. The first part of the physiology to respond to the picture that wasn't there was the heart, not the brain. About a second and a half later, the brain began to respond to the upcoming picture. And a second and a half before the picture actually emerged on the screen, the two coupled together at a frequency match level, and then the picture showed up. So it was heart, brain, heart, then brain, then the two coupled together, then the picture. So heart preceded brain activity in terms of the physiological response. So that took it out of precognitive into something else,
Yeah.
into the perspective that the heart may be receiving information. Now, here's where this was a fun one for me. This was one of those ones that made me smile. I was on an airplane with Roland McCready, their director of research, a few months back, and I was just talking to him about the studies and trying to get make sure I had everything really clear about it. And he said, "Yeah, but think about this." He said, "The 6 second is just what the research protocol was set to.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
What if it could be any time and longer?" So in the research summary, there are a few statements that, sort of bring it together for me. And one of those was, and I'm paraphrasing now, it says that basically it appears as if we have the capacity that our physiology is constantly scanning for future events. And that is part of the new intelligence that we are coming into understanding. And, in essence, what they're saying is it's going on anyway, right? We're just not aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we become more aware of it, then we can harness it, like you said, and use it in practical ways for making life easier. So that becomes back again to the game of, like, what do we do within ourselves? Research is fascinating, that's great, but how do we access more of that type of intelligence in ourselves? In our HeartMath training programs, and we certify trainers to teach these programs, and our coaches and that sort of things that teach them, and we deliver them as well. But there's a module in there about practical intuition. Let's demystify intuition. Let's not make it such a big deal. Let's see it for what it is. It's an intelligence that's bypassing the logical linear processes, resulting in a direct knowing very quickly. And how do we bring that to the forefront in life? So tools, techniques, methods, and things like that we have are designed to help that process. And again, this becomes mainstream when we do trainings in places like healthcare systems, police forces, hospitals, corporations. That module is in there, and they can see it as practical. Those audiences can, because it would be great if a soldier could have the ability to anticipate better,
Right.
or a police officer, or a rescue worker, or someone in a corporation that's trying to plan for something in the future, trying to see their business and how and where it needs to go. So practical intuition becomes useful in that context, not something that's just this mystical experience that's totally unexplained.
Yeah. Well, as I was hearing you, it seemed to me that, okay, there's the 6 seconds and then the photo shows up. So it appeared that the heart may be looking into the future, but if you read some of the latest kind of quantum physics kind of stuff, there is no past, there is no future, time is linear. So it's like you just said a little bit ago, that we're just connecting with what is already here. But it seems as you can only do that if your heart, and I'm going to use a HeartMath term, your heart is in coherence. And I was wondering, that's kind of a big word, so I was wondering if you could kind of explain what you mean and what HeartMath means by coherence, and how does one get your heart into coherence, so we can start using these superpowers of ours.
Okay, great. I'll be glad to. Yeah. When all this heart, brain, body communication is working at optimal levels, we enter a state that's called coherence. There's actually a medical name for this state called psychophysiological coherence. Coherence is a state where all of our body's systems, major systems, are synchronized to an ordered rhythmic beating pattern of the heart. That would be systems like digestion, respiration, the immune system response, hormonal response, brain function. Everything's synced up. So we enter this really, really cool, highly ordered, high performance state. So coherence is arrived at, through these meditative practices, prayers, walks on the beach, things like that. But what's unique about coherence is it's not just a passive sleepy time state. It's very aware, very engaged with life. You're acutely aware of what's going on inside yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, what's going on in your environment. You're more sensitive to others. You're able to see more into what they're trying to say. It makes you a better listener. On and on it goes with the benefits of coherence. And that's the physiological level. At a psychological level, what triggers coherence in a natural way is the feeling of a positive emotion. Meaning when we are appreciating the sunset,
Yeah.
or we are loving or caring for our significant others or our kids or grandkids or our pets, things like that, our system naturally goes more towards coherence. So by learning to activate those positive emotions, what we do is we put ourselves intentionally into a more coherent state. Once we're in that state, Craig, then those type of emotions start to flow. They become more readily available, and we're just easier to feel appreciation for things. Some of the gripes and groans and stresses begin to fade back a little bit. And we begin to, again, feed that field of consciousness, and it's reflecting back to us something different, right? So we are literally changing, our own reality in that moment. And so coherence allows us to do that. And it's a state that's what it does. It's a state that opens us up to a whole lot more, even right down to the health levels in our bodies. So coherence is something that we try to engender through the HeartMath techniques and our technology. The M Waves Inner Balance Trainer, or the amazing technology products that we developed, are all designed to train people to increase the level of coherence. And that's kind of what we do at a fundamental level. And there again, the benefits are really big on all that. It's a lot to be gained from learning to increase your coherence.
Well, what I find so amazing about the work you're doing, like I said before, is not only do you kind of do the research and show this is how the body is reacting to the heart, how the mind is reacting to the heart, but you provide information, teaching tools on how to create this coherence. And it's not anything that hasn't been talked about for the last 5,000 years from the Buddha. But what is great about being in the 21st century is that we can now harness technology to help us with this coherence. And I wonder if you could talk about some of the things you've developed at HeartMath.
Yeah, I'll be glad to. I mean, we have the way in which heart brain body communications can be most effectively measured is looking at changes in our heart rhythms. There's a medical name for that as well. It's called heart rate variability analysis. The acronym for that's HRV. HRV has become very, very popular. We've had a lot to do with that, but it's become hugely popular now. And we're involved in a lot of amazing technology relationship deals with people whose names I can't even mention, large companies involved in the mobile technology movements, the wearable technology movements, and all of that, because HRV is one of the latest hot things. Heart rate variability is looking at the timing between heartbeats. It's not looking at just heart rate like, let's say, an activity monitor does. The timing between each heartbeat actually varies. It changes between every single heartbeat. There are many things that influence that, like movement does, speech does, noises do, light does. Many things influence heart rate variability, and we want a lot of variability. That's how the heart is pumping blood in a very nuanced kind of way. What researchers, until we came along, didn't really look at were the effect of emotions on heart rate variability. And what we found was they were one of the main things influencing it. If we are experiencing, again, emotions that are less savory, like frustration and anger, resentment, those kind of things, it throws those heart rhythms into a very chaotic pattern. And when that's happening, the heart brain body communication is not at optimal. We're not functioning at our very best. When we again switch emotional state, the pattern changes. And if you could see it on the screen, it looked like a sine wave like pattern. The heart is speeding up and gets to a certain point, it naturally starts to slow back down, and then it goes down to the bottom and then comes back up again, and you have this beautiful sine wave like pattern. When that pattern is happening, you're in a state of high coherence. All the body systems are synchronized, working at highly efficient levels. Heart brain body communication is optimal. Positive emotional states are readily available. And in that state, that's when we have the clarity of thought. That's when we open ourselves up to more of that intuitive intelligence that's available to us. To me, Craig, that's when we begin to move the future into the now. That's when we move through the veil between what we see as the future and where we are today. We begin to merge in a certain way to where we actually are creating the future closer to the moment of any given time period that we're living in. And all that happens when we begin to change those heart rhythms. So once we understood all these things through the research that we were doing, the research equipment, we realized, wow, if we could create technology for people that people could afford and have that was they could use to train themselves to be more highly coherent, that would be a great gift. So we created technology to do that. There are 3 versions of it. It's actually the algorithms and all the under the hood stuff is the same in all 3 versions. It's just the form factor in which we're presenting it that's different. We have M-Wave, that's EMWAVE, M-Wave Pro, which works on any computer. It's got a multiple database back into it and all that. It shows the heart rate variability pattern through a patented algorithm that we have. It scores it for the degree of coherence. It tells you your coherence score. So you're learning to increase your coherence score. We took that same technology, we placed it into a handheld device called M-Wave 2. It's about the size of a cell phone. It measures the same way. It reports your coherence level through a change of a light on the device. It shows you whether you're in low coherence, medium coherence, or high coherence. And that was really cool. Now we had portability in that. And it connects to computers. You can upload your data and all of that. The third version that we came out with about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, is we created something called the Inner Balance Trainer. And it's for iOS devices, Apple devices. You download an app from the Apple Store, the Inner Balance Trainer app. You purchase a sensor that you plug into your phone. The sensor attaches to your ear, just like the sensors on the other 2 devices. You attach a sensor to your ear to get the reading. And now you have the whole thing mobile on iOS devices. All of these devices now are synchronized to what's called a heart cloud, which is the cloud thing, where you have your own, you get your own data. You can see all your progress, your coherence scores. You get rewards when you hit certain goals. All that stuff is going on, and it also shows the collective coherence points being generated by everybody in the community who has registered their device to the heart cloud. And let me look at mine right now. We have a little campaign that's been going on, the million coherence points campaign. We're trying to get the daily number of coherence points up over 1 million. And right now, in the last 24-hour period, there have been 874,614 points generated. That's a lot of coherence points. Wow. An average session, someone might get 300 to 500 coherence points. So we have 870-some thousand today right now. So all of this put together, you have these 3 devices, you have a heart cloud, you can see your data, all that stuff means that now we have technology available to anyone that they can use with whatever techniques, methods, practices that they benefit from and that they enjoy, and use the devices to really learn how to see what's going on inside your body and to increase your coherence level. So people ask all the time, is this like biofeedback? Well, biofeedback is its own particular discipline that measures the 4 brainwave states. So this is not biofeedback from that perspective. From a generic understanding of biofeedback, it is. It's giving us back information from our body. But heart rate variability is a different view of that information. And it's become the fastest growing area in the biofeedback world by far, is looking at heart rate variability, not just brain waves. So that's what we've done from a technological perspective. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people in over 100 countries are using this technology to change their lives, to benefit from from learning to access the intelligence of their heart. I use mine every day 2 to 3 times, and I don't have to have it. It's not like I have to have. I can access my heart without it, but it just makes it more interesting and more fun for me.
Yeah.
To have that around and to use it as a guidance system. I can sit down in the morning before I start my day to do my heart focused meditation and set my intentions for the day and all the kindness and love and all that I want to have preceding all my interactions. And with my little Inner Balance Trainer, a lot of times I find myself drifting off. Next thing you know, I'm planning my meeting or thinking about the interview I have with Craig Merriweather today.
Yeah. Well,
so it helps.
Yeah. Well, I remember, for some people who might think this is cheating a little bit to have technology on your side, I remember an interview or a quote from the Dalai Lama, and he's been a part of this research and scientific look into meditation and mindfulness for many years now. And I apologize for the life of me, I cannot find this quote. I have looked everywhere over the last couple of days trying to find this quote, but I remember him in one of the magazine articles, him saying, somebody asked him what he thought of this technology helping people become more mindful, becoming more heart-centered. And he said something to the effect that if he had this technology when he started out, he would have saved himself 20 years. And it's why not use the tools that we have? You can't. Why eat soup with your hand when you have a spoon sitting right there? So why not use something like the M Wave to help become a better human being? Help
Yeah,
change the world.
I can understand why you said that. I mean, here's a great analogy that I've often used. It's a I can get where I need to go without a GPS,
Yeah.
but it's certainly nice to have them now, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It
So it
saves you a
didn't to
lot of
me it
hassle and headache.
saves you a lot of hassle and it saves me getting lost a lot. So it isn't cheating to
Yeah,
use
I
a
mean,
GPS,
yeah,
And I don't have to have it. I can get the map out. I can do all kind of things. I can stop at the gas station and ask for directions. And sometimes I still have to do that. But having a GPS around is just so convenient now. And it's an accepted technology in my life that helps me and saves me time and energy.
yeah. Well, you talked about you're using this with police officers. You're taking this information to the military. But what I find really fascinating is you're putting this in schools too, who are interested in having this technology. And I can only imagine if I had this when I was in grade school or high school. Imagine if you had this in high school, how many traumas and turmoils would have been avoided, and a lot of therapy sessions wouldn't have to happen if you knew how to how would I say this, take control of these emotions that are building up, becoming awareness, and knowing how to calm yourself down.
You're so right, Craig. It's helping children has been a big part of HeartMath's mission. We do it through our nonprofit, and it is a labor of love. It's hard.
Mm.
It's an underfunded area of society. Our team that does the educational work and works with children, they really have to, really have to be creative in what they do. And they've done some amazing things. We're in so many schools all around the world. There's a lot of great things that have happened, but it's not an easy thing to do. But it's always been important to us. Going back to the very, very beginnings of HeartMath, back in 1991, 92, that time frame, when Doc Childry, the founder of HeartMath, wrote his first book, he wrote it for teenagers.
Nice.
It's called The How-To Guide of Teen Self-Discovery, and it was his very first book. What did he write it for? He wrote it for kids.
Yeah.
And so it's been an important part of what we do. But we are still doing a lot there and making more and more efforts, because we believe that one of the missing X factors for kids today is learning to understand and how to better utilize and regulate their emotions. And we live in such a different world today that the childhood I had is no longer in existence. There's a whole nother world that these kids live in, and they have to have the ability to manage themselves emotionally in order to make it through this life right now. It's not being taught in school. There's a movement called social emotional learning that is taking place in schools, and it's trying to develop momentum, and we're right in the thick of all that. And we hope that someday the curriculums in our schools will put as much emphasis on that as they will, on reading, writing, and mathematics,
Yeah.
that we need this in the educational system. I think in the future it will come. Is now we'll play future, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Bring the future in. It will be there. It'll definitely be a part of the educational system, and in some different schools, different places, it already is. But in mass, it's not. But that will change over time. And it's important that we make those changes because, again, this is a complex world and a very uncertain looking world, a very high speed world. And the children today are getting overloaded by all of that. And
Oh
it creates
God.
a lot of problems for them that could be corrected if they had some skill sets just to help them understand themselves and how to manage some of the things that they're experiencing. So it's a big mission for us and a big part of what HeartMath's doing, behind the scenes, behind the technology and the science and the glamour and the glitz of HeartMath. There's some really hard work being done to serve people that need it, like the children in our schools.
Yeah. Well, I want to let everybody know if you want to get more information about InWave, if you go to heartmath.org, you'll see up at the top there, you'll see research and education and training and free services and all that. But if you go to store, there'll be all sorts of links to the different InWave devices that Howard was talking about, and you can spend some time looking around at those because it's really cool stuff that HeartMath's been doing. And certainly when you have some extra time, look at some of the news and articles that's coming from HeartMath, because you guys have been doing this for a long time now, 25 years, and you just keep bringing out new information on an extraordinarily fast basis. So
Yeah,
Lots.
it's pretty interesting. Yeah, I mean, I look back now at 24 years, and it's been I mean, that's a lifetime, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And one of the things about it that I like to share every now and then is a hopeful perspective for people that that I can't appreciate enough about my own life is it still feels so adventurous. It still feels like there's no ceiling.
yeah.
There's
That's
always the
awesome.
next and the next. I've been doing this 24 years. I'm in my 60s now, and and I feel like a kid sometimes.
Yeah.
um, with the adventure that's unfolding and the opportunity we have now, to make even more contributions to the world. So it's a fun time, and yeah, it's been a lot of hard work. We started with nothing. We built it into what we are today. We didn't start with venture capital or other people's money or any of that. We started with ourselves and our beliefs,
Mhm.
and we started with the love and care we had for each other, and we took it from there.
Yeah.
And today we have HeartMath, and I'm real proud of what's here, and especially proud of all the people who've been a part of HeartMath all these years, who have contributed to making it what it is. I have a great position in that I do get to act as a spokesperson. I do get to travel all around the world and do all the live presentations and shows and things. But I see myself as an extension of something larger that happens here at HeartMath. And in my heart, I always try to represent the whole. Recognizing I'm just one part of something that's bigger, with a lot of very aware and intelligent people here who've dedicated their lives to this type of work.
Well, I've always thought HeartMath would be one of the coolest places to work, sort of like Google, only, cooler. But not everybody can work for HeartMath. Not everybody can go to your research center and your institute and hang out. But there are ways of working with HeartMath where you don't have to actually walk into your building. And maybe you could talk about some of the things that people can do, some of
Sure.
the coherence programs you're working on.
I'd be glad to. I mean, there's plenty of things on our websites. We have two, heartmath.org and .com, and there are free things there if people have no money or they don't want to spend any money on something like HeartMath, and there's plenty of things you can get there to give you some information. Um, for those people that are moved by this, that would like to use HeartMath in a way that they could share it with others, there are a couple of ways that we do that. One is we have a program called the HeartMath Coach Mentor Program. And in that program, we train people to use HeartMath techniques and technology and science to help people and to coach them and to mentor them. And that's something you can read about on each site. For those people that maybe do more, they do workshops, they do public speaking, they do this kind of things, they do seminars. We have the HeartMath Certified Trainer Program for them, and it's a extensive course that happens over 4 days with pre-work that we do actually face-to-face. The coaching mentoring program is done on the phone, but we do a live thing where we train people to be HeartMath trainers, and those are the two most popular things that we have in ways in which people can formally, under licenses, share the HeartMath work. There's one other thing that we do, and I'll be relatively brief in that, we haven't talked about today, Craig, which is Global Coherence Initiative. Global Coherence Initiative is a part of our nonprofit, something we started about 7 or 8 years ago. And in that particular aspect of HeartMath, we are bringing people together from all around the world using their heart-focused care and their intention to help shift, the planetary conditions from the chaos and confusion and all that we see to more harmony, cooperation, and enduring peace. You can join that for free, and you can use something that anyone has to help make a difference, which is your own heart. The Global Coherence Initiative has people from literally around the world that are part of this, and we send out things like care focuses where we suggest that people use whatever techniques they want to use and however they go about it, but to put some heart out or some care out to various situations that are taking place in the world. Because it's HeartMath, we also have science in it, and our scientists, working in conjunction with other researchers, have developed very sensitive technology that measures changes occurring in the Earth's energetic fields. The Earth actually has energetic fields, the geomagnetic field and the ionosphere. These fields are constantly changing and fluctuating. Research has been done by a lot of people for a long time now, showing that the fields are affecting us. Our scientists are actually doing research in that area as well. We also have a hypothesis, which over a long period of time will either be proved or disproved. And that hypothesis is that we also affect those fields. that human beings affect the fields, especially mass human emotion. So we've developed technology. We've been deploying Global Coherence Initiative monitoring sites around the world. These are very expensive, about $60,000, $70,000 a piece. Well, eventually we will want 12. Right now we have these monitoring sites in a number of locations. We have one in Northern California. We have one in Northern Canada. We have one in Lithuania. Another one is in Saudi Arabia, and another one is in New Zealand, and the next one will go into South Africa very soon. So we're developing this system that's used to do a number of things, to look at the fields themselves, to provide to the academic literature about understanding these fields, to research the effect the fields are having on us, and also to test the hypothesis that I mentioned earlier, that we are impacting the fields. There are a number of people, some of them who've been on your show, who are part of this on our advisory boards, et cetera. Greg Braden,
Oh yeah.
Lynn McTaggart, Jack Canfield, a really great list of people who support us in this. And Jack said to me one day, it's been a while now, back when we first started, and he was looking at all this. He said he thought it was the greatest experiment in the history of the world.
Wow.
And I asked him, why do you think that? And he said, because if this proves to be true, what you will have shown is that, through science, you'll be showing that all of our thoughts, prayers, intentions, meditations, affirmations, all those things really do have a measurable effect.
Yeah.
Now, we don't need that measurable effect to believe in them. We pray for people when they're sick because we believe it helps, right?
Right.
But at the same time, going back to the very beginning of our conversation today, when something becomes empirical, the power of belief in it increases.
Yeah.
So we increase the power of belief in all these things that we do, then the power of effectiveness will then increase. So that's one of the things that we're doing. And so for people who want to know, what can you do? How can you get involved with HeartMath? There are free things on our websites. You can purchase M-Wave technology. That's another thing you can do. You can become a trainer or become a coach. And you can also become part of the Global Coherence Initiative and join with tens of thousands around the world who have come together using the commonality that we all have, which is our heart, to help shift this planetary field environment in ways that makes these times a bit easier for people around the world. So that site's glcoherence.org. You can get to it through the HeartMath sites, but it's glcoherence.org, Global Coherence Initiative, something anyone can join and be a part of.
Yeah, and we've given a lot of websites, and if you just if you're not already on Howard's page on Tipping Point Radio, if you're hearing this somewhere else, just go to tippingpointradio.com/Howard, and all the links are there to everything: Twitter, Facebook, the Global Coherence Initiative, HeartMath.com, HeartMath.org, articles, websites, all different kinds of stuff. So, as usual, when talking to somebody very cool, we are up against the clock, and it's almost time to let you go. We had discussed before we started the show about possibly doing a technique with people, and I was wondering if you still thought we had time to do that.
Why don't we do the technique, and then after we do the technique, we can do a little closing and then complete out our time together.
Okay.
But I would like to share a technique with everybody who's listening, something simple we can all do, and that we can carry forward into our day after this particular interview is over. It's a simple HeartMath technique, but it has high utility value. It's something that comes naturally to us, but having some structure around it makes it a whole lot more applicable. It's called the Quick Coherence Technique. Let's do it together now. If you're in a position to close your eyes, please do. If not, of course, don't. But I'd like you to focus your attention in the area of your heart, the area of the center of your chest. Just feel your attention shift from your head right down into the area of the heart, center of your chest. Now, I'd like you to keep your attention there, and I want you to breathe naturally and normally, but deeper than you normally would. And as you breathe, I want you to pretend as if the breath is flowing in and out through the area of the heart where you have your focus. Inhale, feel it come right in through the area in the center of your chest, and then send it back out. The breath, pretend as if the breath is going back out through that area. That's called heart-focused breathing. Now, what I'd like you to do is continue doing that heart-focused breathing. And let's go to the third and most important step. I'd like you to feel a positive emotion. Try to feel an emotion like maybe appreciation for the good things you have in your life. Or perhaps you can just feel some of the love or care you have for someone or something in your life. Or maybe you can just recall a time in your life when you felt good. Try to re-experience that some. Any of those type of emotions is just fine. Don't make it a hard process. Make it gentle and easy. Just try to feel a positive heart-related emotion while you do your heart-focused breathing. And this is not part of the step, but while we have all these people from around the world together right now, let's do a little planetary service. What I'd like you to do, if you would, is just radiate out from your heart the feeling of compassion. Compassion for all that's going on in the world, for all the people who are going through trouble and hardship, all the changes that are occurring so fast for everybody, making things so stressful, feelings of overload, all those various things that the world is going through. Have some compassion for that. And let's collectively now join at the level of heart between each and every single one of us, everybody who's on the call, listening now or in the future on a recording. Put that heart out, radiate out that compassion to make things as kind and gentle a process as it can be for people. Okay, thank you, everyone.
That was beautiful. But it's funny. As I was going through that meditation, my mind starts wandering, and I keep thinking, "Oh, if we're doing this now, I might have some time to edit and maybe get this, out by tonight." And unless I don't, and that's where that technology comes in so handy to let you know when you need to get back on track. So yeah,
That's right.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, it's just a simple technique. People can use it. You got in your day, you find things are revving up on you a little bit. Things get a little stressful. Just do heart focus breathing, and activate a heart feeling. The last step was just, I felt like taking the opportunity
yeah.
where we have a collective here who are all sort of sharing an experience to offer, some of our own heart to the world, and that's one of the highest forms of service that we ever do, really. And I think it all helps.
Yeah. Well, Howard, I so appreciate your time, and I so appreciate all the work you've been doing for like almost 25 years. Everybody, heartmath.org is probably the first place you want to start with. Of course, just go to tippingpointradio.com/Howard to get the full extent of all the different websites Howard talked about today, including Facebook and Twitter and all that good stuff. Howard, thank you so much. I so appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, Craig, thank you for having me, and appreciate you taking your time and energy to do this show. I know you do multiple shows, so you're doing all you can through this medium to make a difference in the world, and I honor you for that. So it's great to be with you. I hope that everyone who's listening has enjoyed it in some way and gotten something for themselves. And let's work together. Things are on the move. The world is actually going through a very positive shift, even though it doesn't look like it sometimes.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like you might be sitting at home thinking, well, what can I do? I'm just, one person, but that one person plus one person plus one person, all of a sudden you got a big, huge group. So,
Yeah, and if anybody wants to see things live and get together, I think live events are still important. I think that
hmm
there's an energy created in those. I will be in Basel, Switzerland in the first weekend in April, which is near Zurich. I will be on the following Wednesday in London. And then I think the Friday after that or Sunday after that, I will be at the Agape Center in Los Angeles.
Oh, God, all over the world. Yeah.
So if any of you guys are listening out there, that are in those areas in Europe and, or in the Los Angeles, Southern California area, you want to see a live HeartMath presentation, I think there's some great benefit. That's why one of the reasons I still do them is there's a special kind of experience and energy that's created when we do it live, in addition to things like the wonderful shows that you have, Craig, to help connect people.
Yeah, well, and if you get to go to a live event, grab Howard afterwards and get some jet lag advice, because apparently he's all over the world. So, Howard, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and we'll definitely have you back on.
Thank you so much, Craig. You be well and take care, everybody.